pray with me? Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable unto you, O God, my rock, my redeemer. Amen. This past week, I woke up one morning in the early hours of darkness to the sound of my cell phone buzzing on my nightside table. It was a notification, and I knew if I didn't answer it, it would buzz again and then go away. And because I was still so sleepy, I decided to ignore it and continue snoozing for just a little while longer. And after I had awakened and had a bit of my first cup of coffee in me, I remembered that my phone had tried to get my attention a few hours earlier. And so I put on my glasses and I opened up my phone and I saw that indeed I had a notification from Facebook Messenger. It was a friend of mine that I don't speak to face-to-face very often, but we had been really good friends in high school, and it stated, "I am sorry for what I posted to your timeline. I will try to exercise more self-control in the future." Well, this aroused my curiosity. I had posted something before I went to bed, and I noticed already that two of my friends had gone back and forth. I was getting those notifications on my phone, but I was too tired to really care about checking in on their conversation, and I was frankly just ready to power down for the night and go to sleep. But apparently the two of them had continued their argument back and forth while I was sound asleep. And it all concluded the next morning with an apology to me from a friend that I don't see often, and when I do, we don't see eye to eye politically or socially. I don't mean to make anyone feel like the villain or the hero in this example that I've given of a Facebook conversation, nor in a sermon on taming the tongue. It was my friend this time who issued a sincere apology, which I accepted, and I still have not gone back to look at that conversation on Facebook. I have decided to accept the apology and to move on. I know that it has been, or very well could have been me, who at one point did not exercise self-control on social media. I figure if I accept her apology, that I don't need to go back and belabor the fact. I don't need to look at what was said or done. Forgive and forget and move forward. James begins his teaching on speech. And as we heard in the scripture, at first he's addressing teachers, but soon he goes on to extend it to each and every one of us. We all have a powerful tool in our tongue. It can be used for much good, but it can also be used to wreak disaster if not used properly. And we know from the popular hymn tune, it only takes a spark to get a fire going. It only takes a Facebook comment or a tweet to get a fire going. And now I want to tell you a story that I call The Tweet Heard Round the World. Justine Sacco was a 30-year-old senior director of communications at Interactive Corp, a holding company for over 150 brands. She was traveling home to South Africa for the holidays, and she had already flown from New York to England, where she would connect on a flight at Heathrow Airport to continue her journey. Before embarking on the 11-hour leg of this part of her journey, she checked in with social media one last time in the airport. She tweeted something out. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, I'm not on Twitter, but that platform whereby you can send out short, brief messages to your followers, but they can also be picked up by other people. So she tweeted out something and then boarded the plane, turned off her device, and settled into a restful sleep for most of the flight. What she didn't know is that her tweet had surpassed her usual 170 followers and had become what we call viral. It was being shared and shared and shared. And while most people would like this kind of notoriety, especially if they are a communications director, for Justine, she was receiving some attention that would very well change the rest of her life. She had attempted to make a joke, to poke fun at herself and other people who experienced white privilege. She was pointing out she thought her ability to live in this bubble, far away from consequences that other people face. Sarcasm, we realize, doesn't always compute very well over tweets, and hers certainly did not. Her tweet was, and this is going to be difficult to hear, "Going to Africa. Hope I don't get AIDS. Just kidding. I'm white." What a bad choice of words. It was a stupid tweet, and it is cringeworthy. I see you out there just cringing. And we all get that now. And now she understands that it was a terrible joke. But did she deserve what happened to her? While she was sleeping and while her phone was off, people called her out, which I think would be appropriate, but some went too far. Some said they hoped she got raped and got AIDS from it. Some pressured her company to fire her, and then her company had to issue a statement apologizing on her behalf. People figured out which plane she was on, and they followed it through Flight Tracker. Some were even there to videotape Justine as she walked off the plane. They saw her and videotaped her as she turned on her phone, as most people did. But the first message she saw was from a friend saying, "Justine, oh my God, call me, are you all right?" She found out from her friend what had happened. She immediately deleted her account. But one delighted Twitter user said, "Sorry, Justine, your tweet lives on forever." Your tweet, it lives on forever. I know that might sound silly to some, but we are living in a time when those who use social media must be extremely cautious about what we post online, because it can, in fact, live on forever, even long after you delete the comment or your entire account. And so how do we raise up children to learn about an online presence when we sometimes have trouble even discussing things civilly face to face? How do we teach people in our churches to be responsible users of social media? Because we need to know how we think about what we post can have tremendously long-lasting effects. What we post can be available to potential employers in the future, and they can go through a long history of things that we have communicated. How can we teach that, as inappropriate as some posts are, such as Justine's, that we should not delight in the piling on of hurtful comments to the originator of the tweet? Justine suffered from PTSD, and her case is well documented with the New York Times article. She met with a reporter for several times in the next year, and she said that after one of their meetings, she only made it back to the lobby of her building before she crumpled into tears again. All from one mistake, one stupid tweet. If you're on Twitter, or if you're not, if you're on Facebook, or if you're not, We can all relate. We have all said something that we wish we could retract. Something we wish we could delete from the record after we said it. We have all misspoken. We have all said things that hurt somebody else's feelings. At one time or another, we have all been careless with our words. James tells his audience that this tongue that we have in our bodies is a powerful organ. It is as powerful as a bit in the mouth of a horse, that same bit that can guide and lead the entire beast. It is like the small rudder of a mighty ship. Something so small can do such powerful things. It's just like a spark. Under the right conditions, we have seen large forests turn to burnt rubble with property and human lives lost just because of one spark, sometimes in the hands of a careless person. But it is a powerful spark nonetheless. And that is the crux of it. When it comes to thinking about our tongues, the tongue, it is powerful. And what results from our speech depends on how we use this tool, doesn't it? This section that we read from the book of James fits nicely with the rest of the book. He has already told us that humankind, we are the first fruits of God's creation. Therefore, God has extremely high expectations of us and our ethics as how we speak to one another. We cannot use the same tongue to praise God and then turn around and curse someone else who is made in God's image. That would be a misuse of the tongue. He has already told us that we should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. If we misuse our speech, then some could say our allegiance to God is in question. How does this play out for us in community? How do we hear James today? From my estimation, being here in community with you, I would say that we conduct ourselves rather well when it comes to our speech. I have been in some board meetings and other places where there was a lot of tension in the room, and I cannot say that everybody spoke from their higher selves. I know that we would like to think that we're not held to any higher accountability than anyone else. But I want you to take a minute and think about the damage that is done when a teacher humiliates a child, or a self-professed Christian is not kind with her speech, or when a pastor tries to be funny and ends up making a joke that offends someone. Think about politicians who have so much of their speech recorded. One misstep can ruin their entire career. There is a different level of damage done because some have answered the call to a certain level of authority. And with authority comes power, even if we would like to think that is not the case. I want you to nod your head if you can still feel the sting of a comment that was made to you years ago that hurt. And so I can tell that how we use our words, it does matter. It can help or it can hurt. Now, I want you to think about it a little more personally. Think about a comment that you have issued to someone else. And you feel that same sting, don't you? It hurts. We wish we hadn't done it. We feel that same sting. Ouch. Well, there's good news here. The good news is we are all human. We're going to make mistakes with our speech. But we can also make amends. Just like my friend. She's not a person of faith, but she reached out to me and she apologized for not being her best self when she posted whatever it is she posted on my timeline. We can seek forgiveness We can give ourselves compassion to just try better another day. And although we will falter, we will have many more opportunities to make good things come forth with our words. As powerful as the tongue can be for evil, think also how it can be used for good. A well-timed affirmation, a thoughtful compliment that truly uplifts the individual, a note of encouragement that arrives on a particularly challenging day in your life. All of these things can do a world of good. As much as we admonish one another to be careful with our words, I also encourage you to be overflowing with good things to say to one another. When we speak to a brother or sister, I want you to think that you are speaking to an image of the divine who exists right here before us. And think, would you address this person who contains a divine spark of the divine, any differently than you would address God? Before speaking, take a moment and truly listen. Press the pause button if you feel compelled to speak before the time is quite right. Think for a moment. What can be helpful or hopeful in this situation? And never forget this one option that is rarely used. You can practice silence. Silence is not necessarily indifference, but silence can be a holy practice. Think of the hurting soul. Rarely can anything be said that can make the situation better. Think of another story in our Bible, the one that concerns Job. And think of Job's friends. When they heard what had happened, they essentially came to Job to sit Shiva with him when he had lost everything. His wife, his children, his livestock. He was in ill health. And at first, they showed up. And most importantly, they shut up. There was nothing to be said. It all went wrong when they did what? They opened their mouths and started to talk. And they started to try to rationalize or theologize what had happened. You know the kind of things people say in these situations. Oh, they're in a better place. Or everything happens for a reason. Or, my personal favorite, God never gives you more than you can handle. These things, they're not helpful at that time. I want you, however, to have a few statements in your arsenal for when you're in that challenging situation, such as Job's friends, and you don't know what to say. So here are a few, and I hope that if you're sitting nearby someone, you can turn and say these things to them. We're going to practice. Here's your first one. Repeat after me. Friend, I am here for you. Practice it. Friend, I am here for you. And now, to that same friend or a different friend, you can shout it across the aisle if you need to. Friend, you are loved no matter what. Practice that. Friend, you are loved no matter what. And here's one that I always like. It works for people of faith or people who are not of faith. My brother or sister, whichever one is appropriate in your situation, you are not alone. Say that. My brother, my sister, you are not alone. And then, you know what you do after that? You sit down and you be quiet.